Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Thursday, the 18th of January. We will get through all the themes of today, which I thought it was a very interesting trading day. So I will talk about some of the major themes for the day. Before I do that, risk disclaimer, which is right in front of you, everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. So if we look at where we stand now for the month before we go through today's price action, the Qs which dipped to red yesterday for the month or for the year at this point, now back positive. Same thing with SPY. IWM still down 5%. And then you've got some other areas that are kind of interesting to note, such as like ARK Innovation. Even though I don't trade that ETF for many of the constituents in it, I still find it interesting to see what it's doing for the year. And that's down 13%. So if you feel like you haven't been executing very well so far this year, take a look at what that fund is doing. Innovation down 13%. I don't even know how that makes sense, given some of the stocks that I'm going to talk about in today's video. But nevertheless, let's talk about a few things. So, of course, the semis were the big standout for the day. I will get through that first. I want to go over the indices first. You can see that the Qs did outperform, up 1.4% today. SPYs had a really nice day today too, up close to 1% on the day, which is right here. I can actually put that in green. And the small caps, which were all over the place, positive, negative, positive again. They closed positive. And, I think depending on what time you looked at this market, you may have kind of had different feelings about it. But from 1 o'clock on, this market kind of took off to the upside and made things a lot better than they looked at around the lunchtime hour. So let's talk about just the indices first, and then there's a lot to talk about with breadth and as well as the semis, and then I've got a whole bunch of charts to go through. So you normally start with the daily chart first. I'm going to do things backwards just so that you can kind of see how today unfolded, right? And where we kind of held in there. So this is just the 5-minute chart of S&P futures. And, this was the what I refer to as back and forth price action, trying to go higher, coming back in, trying to go higher again at 11:30. And then we were hit with some selling, right? And we took out the lows of the day, and it looked like today might really kind of get ugly. But notice where we held, and this was something that I posted in the trading room today. I'm like, okay, well, we're checking in. We're checking into support. Either we're going to hold that, or we're going to break lower. And we did hold it, and I was actually pretty surprised. I didn't think that we would take out the highs like that. I thought we would kind of pause in here, but again, I'm not in the market of making predictions, right? We just kind of know how to make decisions based on where price action is, what price action is telling us, and as well as having some stops in place, using a system like the MarketWebs to understand where there is some support and where we can kind of, where price can possibly bounce from. And it certainly did in there. Now, note, you could see us rallying right up to that 5-minute VPOC, right, which is going back to where we were a couple days ago, right, where we got rejected. This was, I think, Tuesday, right, Tuesday's highs. So we came back, met this, right, and so far hanging around it. So I don't see, no rejection for now, and we're kind of hanging in there. All right, just to kind of move back a little bit. Notice as well where we are in the 1-hour value area, right? Because each one of these value areas will give you a little bit of, especially the 5-minute and the 1 hour, giving you some hints of where support and resistance is around. So, this was the VPOC that we took out yesterday, right? Really nice reversal on that 1-hour virgin point of control. Again, back and forth on trying to get into the value area and a little bit of a slip. Maybe you could call that a false breakdown for the day, right? And then going back to where we are earlier this week, right? So that kind of gives you a nice picture, I think, of what the S&P futures are doing. notice as well, when we look at the daily chart, all of this kind of could be considered some type of consolidation, right? And testing the boundaries of that. What we want to see ultimately, because we're just inside the January value area, which means we're range bound. We're not in price discovery or trending yet. You can see on the top left of our screen, it says range bound, right? Watch for basically a break of 48.21 in S&P futures. That would get me more excited, and hopefully the breath picks up. So we're going to talk about next. We're going to talk about the Qs, but I just wanted to pause here just for a second, and I should have this screen up here someplace. So this is just a quick dashboard, I guess, of what breadth did. There's a couple of things that I look at when I review this, right? So I like how that Bloomberg has this stripped out, right? The advancing versus declining. So of course, only 30 names in the Dow, 24 were advancing. So that's good. That's what you want to see. S&P 331 advancing versus 169. So altogether, the Dow, the S&P, that's pretty good. It was a little bit less, it was more mixed. There was more advancing in NASDAQ today, which is good. But this definitely changed during the day. It was where we were midday. It did not look so good, right? It did not look so hot in terms of advancing versus declining. But things kind of straightened out. So again, it's why, I always kind of come back to that, that the closing print is most important. All right. So just keep that in mind. All right. Someone's in here. I just want to close this. But I hope you should still be able to see the video. All right. And then when we look at 4-week new highs, right? Notice how the Dow, and most of these, right? The 4-week new lows outweigh, right? I kind of look more at the S&P than anything else here. You had 41 new highs during the day. Earlier when I sent out my midday note, it was much worse than this. So we did see some things perk up, but ultimately we're going to want to see, it's a good test to see breadth, see more new highs than more new lows, right? We really started to see the new lows expand towards the end of last week, and certainly this week it's been, the new lows have really outnumbered the new highs. So that's going to have to get reconciled if we're going to continue to go higher, right? We want to see, as for confirmation, right, strong internals under the hood of the indices, right? So we'll keep an eye on this, but certainly, 41 new 4-week highs is not bad either, right? There's certainly a number of names to kind of comb through and find where the leaders are in this market. I mentioned I would come back to the Qs, right? Because they are showing absolute market leadership. Notice what they're doing here, right? So we'll do this exercise the right way this time. We're starting with the daily chart and take a look at what's happening here, right? We're back to the top of value. So a couple of weeks ago, it looked like this might start to get ugly for the Qs, right? But we've been kind of methodically moving higher here. Test of the 20-day moving average and back up, and that test was a good test and a positive move off of that test. And now basically watch this 412.56, right? If we could stay above that, then we're in pretty good shape. Right. Also looking at the 1-hour value area, notice what happened here towards the end of the day. Right. This was yesterday. Perfect, nice little test there at the bottom of value. We held that and started to kind of gain and build from there, right? Again, much different looking than the S&P, and notice that we are above value, and we're in price discovery for the week, right? So starting to look really good if we can continue to go from here. There's not a lot to dislike from where we close today, right? Based on what we're doing here, right? We're higher than any point this year, and we're above this week's and this month's value area. Not bad at all. I'll just go over IWM very quickly. Again, things that look very difficult to me, I kind of just stay away from. I can't figure this IWM out, nor do I want to, right? At this point, right? I like easy, nice signals, right? If I know people will love if the IWM rallies, I think that'll be a great sign too. But for now, it's giving you some day trading, right? Because again, it's giving you some good ranges for the day, but ultimately the trend is still challenged here, right? And if we look at the daily chart, nice to see, that's a start to see us bounce off the 50-day moving average, but we're still below these short-term moving averages, right? a stronger chart, price would be above the short-term moving averages, not below. So for now, this continues to be the relative weak area of the market. Before I get to the single stock review, this is kind of the major issue that we have on our hands right now, is that yields are going higher, right? And if you want to see actual yields, I can bring those up for you, because there's some differences. You know, when we look at the TLT, it's closely resembles like the 20-year, right? And you can see that went up about 5 basis points, same as the 30-year did. So the short end of the curve wasn't the issue. In fact, the yields actually fell a little bit on the 2-year, but yields are going up, you know, pretty quickly, right? And we've, you know, we consolidated there at the 200-day moving average a bit, and we broke it. We kind of held this for just a quick second, and now we're below value. So this is not a good picture, and I think this is really what I'm, you know, concerned about. Notice that we're also at the bottom of value, right? It's, you know, go back to what happened, right? You know, when interest rates were going higher in the fall of last year, right? August, September, October. Of course, those are weaker seasonal months too, but it also coincided with higher yields, right? And the market just did not do very well when this was going on. And if we break this, you know, I think that personally, I'm concerned about the market if rates continue to go higher, right? It is a headwind for the market, as well as what the dollar is doing. The dollar has also, you know, you could see this is a weekly chart, right? So we're looking at for this week, right? The dollar's been getting stronger, right? We don't want to see that, right? Same thing, same concept here, right? June, you know, July, you know, towards the end of July, August, September, October, right? When the dollar goes stronger, it is not good. Generally, it is not good for equities. So we're getting the start of that. If we can kind of stop here, then, you know, perhaps the Qs can continue to break out, but they don't. Those, you know, these two things, the dollar and interest rates, are going to be a must watch, because even though we rallied today, I did not get that confirmation in bonds that bonds were coming off the lows. They settled down in terms of volatility, but overall not that great. All right, so let's begin to kind of talk about sectors, right? This is the best one, right? Notice what the weekly chart looks like. We only have one more day of the week, so we can cheat and we can look at the weekly bar a little bit, but that's a new high in the semiconductors. And, you know, of course, Taiwan Semiconductor, which did take out an upside level today. Right, boom. Right to that version point of control like a magnet, right? So big move. That's almost up 10%, and just gave a big move to the whoops, that's Nvidia, right? That's where my mind goes right away. But so looking at this, right, if you want a level to trade against, right? So the breakout is on in the semiconductors as long as it stays above 176.73. But that's a beautiful breakout now out of the value area for January, and we're in price discovery. Right, we can go through a couple of these names. I might as well go through Nvidia because I already started to look at that one. You know, I've been taking profits on the way up. I got long on this first candle, and you know, I've been trying to basically stay in the trade, and basically just you know, get through it. But here is my target, 569. I added, and I added on the dip yesterday. So that's what I've been doing with Nvidia, is when it goes down, I try to add, you know, I think I've taken 4 targets in this trade, right? And you know, I add on a little bit of a dips, you know, and then we'll have to see, because we are getting starting to get extended here in Nvidia. So that's the situation. But yeah, what's my average cost basis? Not that it matters to you, but this is the wrong thing. Nvidia trades. Trades channel. There we go. Yeah, so I added, but my original cost basis is down at what, 499, I guess it is. Yeah, you know, so right around 500. So I'm 70 points in the money. Right in here is where I got involved on the break of the value area. So again, I didn't catch the first one, but I caught it here, right? Yeah, and so it's a bit extended. You know, AMD finally came in today, right? I mean, that was a gift, I think, if you're holding AMD to see this thing go up another like 3% on the open, right? And, you know, you have to be reasonable, right? You have to, like, if you've been in this for the last couple of days, and if you're not selling after like a 15% move in a couple of days, or whatever this thing has moved this week, you know, you got to take some of these gifts, right? Broadcom also very strong, right? That's now getting up to the top of value, but man, what a nice move, right? This is one of the strongest semis for a little bit, and really moving back up. ARM, you know, again, we continue to see call activity in it. So far that call activity hasn't really worked. I've talked about that before, but it's starting, you know, I've made a nice move today. I've stuck with it, right? I said I would, as long as it kind of held this candle. It almost didn't, but it did. So far, okay. And this has been a name that I've been riding all the way since this, and of course have tried to add to it on this little bit of, you know, consolidation that we've got. All right. To get away from this group, well, SMCI, we might as well go over this a little bit, right? They announced some numbers. Notice, so if you're not in SMCI, right? So first of all, it's not even above the high for the day, right? That's why these value areas are so important. Watch this 331 level, right? Notice how it's having a little bit of difficulties there, even though they announced some really good preliminary numbers, right? It's got to get through that 331. To talk about a couple other names, of course, you know, the cyber names, they kind of gapped up and then they didn't really do much, but I still like this CrowdStrike out of the bunch, right? Notice what it did today, right? After yesterday's small pullback, back above the 5-period moving averages, and still in great technical shape. Another name in the software space, which I think is the best in breed out there, which is going to report earnings, you know, pretty soon, but look at ServiceNow. Right, continue to move, right? This name's going to report earnings on the 23rd. To get a little bit outside of that, another group that I thought was strong, right? And you could see the strongest name from the open, biggest gainer from the open was the transports. Now, part of that was due to Hertz, right? Hertz was up decently today, but I'll tell you, you know, it's a nice move and it's nice to see that group participate. Names like NSC, which had a rumor today about the name, that name got back above the value area. But I'll tell you, I tweeted out a chart of CSX, even though it hasn't really done anything. It just looks like that, you know, I like this consolidation here. It may wait for earnings, which is also going to be next week. Another name that I like in this group is Picard, right? This was one of the strongest names. Took a while. You had to be patient for this breakout, right? It almost, you know, had this. So this is names like to shake people out, right? Look at how it kind of went all the way down here, right? And then it, you know, wasn't a straight, you know, this would have been nice, a straight breakout here, but it actually messed with people a little bit, going down a leg, you know, making a lower high here, going back and testing those lows again, and then it went, right? But it's starting to gear back up again. You know, only problem is that's also has earnings next week, but very strong. And then Uber, which is a part of the transports as well, is breaking out, right? Breaking back above that value. Or sorry, it's been a long day, but you know, cute little pullback in here right at the top of value, spending a little bit of time consolidating and moving back higher. But I like this consolidation a lot in Uber, and acted a little bit better than Dash. Dash still did okay today, but not as strong as Uber. A few other names that I wanted to go over. We saw this call buyer today in energy. We really haven't seen too much go on in energy. This is XES. It's one of the energy ETFs, right? So take a look at this thing. This was 4,000 of the March 85 calls. You know, they're looking for a significant bounce. Could this bounce? You know, this is sometimes where we do see option activity that's kind of interesting. Somebody's saying, hey, I think this is a place to get involved in energy stocks. Instead of, you know, personally, instead of owning the ETF, I would rather pick individual names. Speaking of which, the coal names, you know, and I didn't put anything on, but look at this AMR continue. This is the best energy coal name out there, making new highs today, up 5%. Is it a semi name? Is it a artificial intelligence name? Nope, it is a coal name making new highs. Very, very impressive. So I would, you know, tend to kind of look through your energy charts. You know, Oxy, again, not my favorite chart, but it tends to bounce at this lower range. You know, it's something to possibly look out for. Moving back to another group, again, I'm just going to go all over the place here today, but I like this Williams-Sonoma starting to break higher. Notice the VPOC takeout, right? So consolidation starting to move higher. I did get long this name today, right? The industrials also had a decent day today. That was the first group that I really started to see this afternoon that started to kind of get some strength here. You know, this was right around 1 o'clock and really started to kind of leg up like this. So not bad for the industrials. And I got long GE today, right? This is a name that I keep coming back to, right? I think that's a very good practice to do in trading, right? Is to have certain names that you can continue to come back to. You don't have to hold them all the time, right? But you can kind of come in when there's a dip, right? And I like when there's dips in GE. Why? Because it's been very methodical, right? Kind of went sideways here for a bit and the trend resumes. Also going to have to watch because that name unfortunately has earnings next week, and that's the problem with earnings. But I also liked a couple other names. Ingersoll Rand made a new high today, right, in that space. All right, guys, that is it. I can go through like a number of other charts, but we'll keep it simple. You know, keep in mind the NAMO, which is the McClellan oscillator. A couple people brought that to my attention yesterday. Was getting very oversold, right? So far, this could just be kind of, talked about as an oversold bounce. Now, again, the Qs don't look like an oversold bounce. They look like a possible breakout. But watch for some of the things that I mentioned earlier. We'll see if interest rates can stabilize, if the dollar could stop moving higher, then perhaps we can begin to see more of an oversold bounce. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow. One final note, I do send out my positions for members so you can kind of see how I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. And also get charts with each one of my setup that I do. You can go to tribecatradegroup.com, or if you just want our notes, you could go to ttgtrading.substack.com. Check it out. Have a great night, everybody.